I've never made a video like this, but I want to make a sort of a shout out or even a promotion video for this guy, Richard D. Hall. I've been watching his videos for about 5 years now. And he's just so dedicated to what he does. He puts so much work into researching the topics he makes shows and documentaries about. He's just sincere. And he can even admit when he's wrong, and hardly anybody is able to nowadays because of their ego. So I really feel like he deserves a lot of support. He's actually the first guy I've been thinking about donating money to just because I want to support him and what he does. If I lived in the UK, I would go to one of his shows, but I don't anymore. Back then I didn't know about him when I lived in England. So what he makes videos about, for example, is 9/11, and he's actually one of the first people who introduced me to the whole 9/11 no plane thing. Then he makes a lot of videos about the so-called aliens and UFOs, unidentified flying objects. And about Madeleine McCann, he made a lot. And I watched one of the documentaries about her, that missing girl. Anybody who's from Europe probably has heard about her. And there's quite compelling arguments that she died before she was supposedly kidnapped. So if you're curious or you ever were about that little girl, definitely watch that. I'll link a lot of stuff in the description, the stuff that I find really interesting. And I'll also talk a little bit about aliens. And my thoughts on it, generally the information I've gotten from it, most of it comes from his videos actually. For example, the interview he made with this guy from a secret military service was really interesting, and if it's true, then that says a lot, because from what I remember, he said that he went to the places where people were mutilated, and they sort of removed the evidence from the place, and also described the beings that he saw. Plus there's a lot of animal mutilations similar to the human ones, but the human ones are usually removed, whereas the animal ones are usually, I suppose, left because there's just more of them, or it's done more often to animals, non-human animals. Who knows about that? Well, they do, but we don't. That's also quite curious, that the animals are mutilated the same way as the human animals. And then a lot of interviews with people who have seen all of those UFOs, and there's absolutely no question about it that there's all of these objects in the air. Actually, even somebody I know, she is around 70 now, but 50 years ago she had a friend who was a pilot, and he actually saw these UFOs when flying a plane, and he even wrote a book about it. And when you hear it from people that you know in real life, not somebody on the internet, then it's a lot different than just watching some documentaries. And the pilots nowadays sign this thing where they do not talk about what they see when they fly the plane. So I'm sure that the pilots nowadays also see them, and many people do, and that's why there's so much disinformation when it comes to this. So people don't even they're just confused as to what it is, because all the mainstream media, the Hollywood films, they show them as these beings from outer space, or just make fun of it, and there's just a lot more to it. If there's any truth to these people who report seeing these beings, creatures, tall, skinny, big-eyed, fast-moving, compared to humans, that is, then the question really is, why does Hollywood want us to believe that it's these beings from a different planet that travel here with this advanced technology, which is definitely out there, but it's secret, it's not available to the public. Many people believe that we are gonna have a fake encounter with these beings, maybe on a smaller scale, maybe even something like an invasion, but that sounds like fear-mongering and could all be misleading. But I don't believe so, because they've been preparing us for decades with these films and X-Files, for example. That kind of creatures is what I'm talking about. We have all seen them at this point. So if we ever saw a creature like that, we would all believe that they traveled from a different planet, whereas I don't even believe in space as such, as we get told in school. It would make even more sense that they are from a different dimension or something completely else, but that's too much to get into right now. I'll talk about that in a different video. Another topic that Richard D. Hall talked about lately was David Icke. And most of you have heard about him. He's from the UK, and he's sort of the leader of the conspiracies there, as is Alex Jones in the United States. David Icke and Alex Jones are both misleading people, but they are not agents, as many like to believe, so they are not doing it on purpose. They actually believe that they are spreading the truth. Agents are people who appear and then disappear. They just quickly do their job. Good examples would be Snowden and Assange, for example. Good examples would be, for example, David Icke in '97, he talked about a lot of stuff which was credible and sort of compelling, and then he started talking about those shape-shifting reptilians. The thing is that there's two reasons as to why he started talking about this. Firstly, he said he started hearing voices. I'm not saying that he's schizophrenic, but there's technology to make people hear voices, and he believed that it's God. Maybe he's still hearing these voices, I'm not sure about that, never heard him talk about it again, but maybe it's still telling him these things. But definitely back then, it told him that whatever he believes, that it's the truth, and it sort of confirmed it for him. And ever since then, he hasn't stopped talking about the shapeshifters, and that what he's doing is right, sort of, so to speak. And the other thing is that people came to him at in the late 90s and started telling him about these reptilians. So it's not people who he looked for. You understand what this means? That there could actually be people who on purpose gave him false information to spread, because he was spreading a lot of compelling things before that that were actually sort of backed up. And Alex Jones, it's pretty simple. He says that he receives thousands of government documents. He has said it over and over again, and nobody understands where these documents come from. Even though he speaks a lot of important stuff, such as vaccines, he also talks a lot of nonsense. So he also probably also believes that he's talking the absolute truth. It's very interesting how they get manipulated like that. So that's the difference between people like them and Richard D. Hall, because for example, the guy from the secret military service, he actually looked for him, tried to contact him for 2 years, and he actually found him and he interviewed him. It's not somebody who came to him and tried to give him some kind of false information about aliens or anything like that. So that's the difference between people who are really truth-seeking. They actually go out and look for things themselves and don't let information come to them by email or something. Only email, that is. That's kind of how it works nowadays. People sit at home and that's all they do. So totally check out the links to Richard D. Hall and his stuff in the description. One more thing I actually want to mention is about the sheep that went missing. Not far from actually where I used to live in England. 1,500 and then 1,000 more a bit north, and then some more, even more to the other side, but those are probably insurance fraud, as he said. Whereas the others, when you have so many animals go missing, it's really weird how from one day to the other over 1,000 animals just disappear. There's hardly any way that it could have been well, let's just say kidnapped. So there's a lot of cases like these which are just really make you think about what's going on.
Don't you feel